The Last Favor, Chapter 1, The Woman in Red. The fan on my desk did its best imitation of a dying bird, rattling and squeaking as it pushed hot air around a room that smelled like stale smoke and melted varnish. Even the bourbon tasted tired. The street below was its usual carnival of sirens, laughter that cut like knives, and saxophone wails bleeding through neon buzz. Nights in this city are made for one thing: bad decisions. That's when I heard her. High heels down the corridor, steady, unhurried, spelling out that she never rushed for anyone. Then the door creaked open without a knock. She walked in like she owned not just the room but the building. Red silk clung to her like paint on a sports car, black gloves that promised sins, eyes with stories no preacher could forgive. She had the kind of presence that made you forget the peeling wallpaper and the stack of unpaid bills. "You're Mr. Kenton?" she asked, not so much as a question as a confirmation, like she already knew the answer. "That's still the name between the cracks of the door glass. Who's askin'?" "Clara Wendell." She set a photograph on my desk. Middle-aged guy, hairline halfway gone, smile that didn't know humility. "My husband, missing since last night." "Maybe he needed air," I said. Her jaw clicked. "No. He was carrying something, a package, and now dangerous men are asking questions. If it's not delivered by sunrise, they'll kill him and me." That's when she slid 5 crisp hundreds across my desk, the kind of money that makes you stop worrying whether a job smells and start worrying if you'll live to spend it. "And you want me to find him," I said. Her eyes met mine. "You don't have a choice. None of us do." I picked up the bills. They stank of perfume and panic. And just like that, my night stopped being quiet. Chapter 2. The Wrong Job. A missing husband case is the kind you don't take unless you like soap opera tears and wasted hours. I don't usually. But Clara didn't come looking for sympathy. She came looking for survival. George Wendell, once a gray-suited clerk in an insurance office until he realized crime paid more often than premiums, started running diamonds across state lines, neat little jobs for men in shark-skin suits who never wrote receipts. But diamonds weren't what he carried now. Clara didn't know what it was, or pretended not to. Either way, every hustler and mobster in the city had their ears pointed at it. I told myself I wouldn't take the job, but the money was already in my drawer, and my conscience doesn't override my landlord. So I started digging. Wasn't hard. George made enemies the way bars make hangovers. Bookies he stiffed, loan sharks waiting with brass knuckles, mob collectors who would have engraved his gravestone for free. One thing kept showing up: the Riverside Motel, a dump where neon died young and sheets never saw laundry. Places like that don't keep clients, they keep corpses. I drove over after midnight, cigarette smoke curling like doubts around me. Sometimes you walk toward trouble with your head up. Sometimes you just stumble into it because someone pays you to. Chapter 3. A Debt Too Big. Room 16 stank of mildew and last chances. The blinds hung like broken ribs, and the air was damp enough to choke. I pressed the door handle. Not locked. It never is when life has already exited. He was sprawled on the bed, shoes still on, shirt wrinkled, eyes staring up at the cracked plaster like he was hoping for an answer before the bullet hit. The hole in his throat was small, precise, someone professional, not emotional. On the nightstand sat a glass, lipstick on the rim, red, same shade I'd seen grinning out of Clara's smile hours earlier. That told me a lot. None of it I liked. I opened a drawer, empty. Suitcase half open, package gone. The only thing left in the room was a corpse, cooling under a cheap ceiling fan. Then came the steps, heavy, official, more than one pair, either cops or mob soldiers, neither of whom I felt like checking ID for. I slipped out the fire escape into an alley where cats fought over trash. The city swallowed me whole again, but I'd left one thing behind, my lighter on the nightstand. One mistake too many. Chapter 4. Dead Man at Riverside Motel. The alley stank of fish bones and spilled beer, and it welcomed me like a drunk uncle, loud, dirty, and filled with regrets. I kept my back to the wall while sirens moaned, somewhere closer than comfort. My lighter was still sitting back on that nightstand near Wendell's corpse. The boys coming up the stairs would find it, and once they found it, they'd think I pulled the trigger. By the time I reached my car, my head was already rehearsing explanations I'd never get to use. There's no jury in this town, only bookmakers, and the odds for fall guys like me are always 10 to 1. I drove home the long way, radio off. The only song the city hummed was Suspicion. By dawn, I'd be wearing it like a collar. I didn't have to wait long. 10 o'clock sharp, my door rattled. Cops. They always knock like they own the place. In stepped Detective O'Malley, a cement block in human form. Broken nose twice over, eyes that belonged to someone who'd forgotten what sympathy felt like. He didn't sit. He didn't need to. "Funny thing, Kenton," he said, tossing a familiar lighter onto my desk. "You know where they found this." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I lose things. Maybe the tooth fairy's branching out." "Maybe," he replied, jaw tightening, "but it was lying 2 feet from George Wendell's body, shot clean an inch from the jugular. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" I shrugged. If I was that good, O'Malley, I'd charge more. He leaned in, close enough to smell the garlic from his lousy breakfast. "You're in the middle of it, whether you like it or not. Stay out of my way, or you're going down with the body count." He left, door banging behind him and accusation hanging in the air thicker than nicotine. I poured a double bourbon, neat. The taste was bitter, the kind you acquire when you know damn well that however messy it already was, it had only just begun. Chapter 5. The Package Nobody Wants. The word traveled faster than I could breathe. Wendell was dead. The package was missing, and half the city now believed I had it. Cabbies wouldn't look me in the eye, bookies shut their windows when I passed, even the bums were whispering my name like it was a curse. When your shadow stretches longer than your alibi, you don't hide, you hunt. So I went digging around Wendell's drinking holes. Bartenders had lips tighter than corks, but money and mean stare loosened doors. The story emerging smelled worse than fish left overnight. Wendell had bragged about this job, louder than he should have. He hadn't just ferried diamonds this time, he'd gotten rockets strapped to his pockets. "Not money, not stones," one barkeep finally croaked. "Word is papers, names and numbers, things that could ruin congressmen and bury half the commission." That explained the perfume of desperation. Gems you can fence, but lists, dirt, secrets, that's a currency people kill for without blinking. I turned out of the saloon near midnight and felt it instantly, the silence following me. 2 men, cigarette tips marking them like devils in the dark. They didn't care to hide, not amateurs. They closed in quick. One had a grin that didn't belong to his face, the other twirled a knife as if showing off for the moon. "Forget George Wendell," Knife said. I smiled. Wasn't planning on sending him flowers. They slashed fast, but desperation makes me quicker. A trash can lid to the jaw, knee in a stomach, elbow to the temple. Knife went through stacked crates, face first into fish guts. His partner limped off bleeding insults. I dusted off my jacket and lit a smoke. Waterfront shadows had longer stories to tell, but one thing was carved in stone now. If I didn't find that package, someone would put me to sleep before I got another chance to lose a lighter. Chapter 6. A Visit from the Cops. Next morning, the rain came, hard and unforgiving, like the city was washing itself of crimes it couldn't erase. That's the thing with rain. It tricks you into thinking maybe things can get clean again. They never do. I was halfway through a stale sandwich in my office when O'Malley barged back. He never learned to knock twice. He looked soaked but smug. "You move quick, Kenton. 2 Chinatown boys in the ER last night. Their stories that you hit them." I said, "They tripped on morals." He didn't laugh. "Listen, the brass think that package has something inside it the press would throw parties over. Names, records, hell, maybe photographs. Wendell was too dumb to know what he was carrying. Now he's a corpse, and guess what? Every trigger in town thinks you've got it. You followin'? Or should I draw pictures?" I stared long at him. "And what do you think?" He leaned back, eyes narrow. "I think you're too good at surviving to be innocent. But I also know you're the kind of rat that doesn't eat until it's sure the cheese is safe. If you've really got the package, I'll find it on your cold belly. If you don't, well, I'm not in the business of saving fools." He left again. The rain pounded the windows as if agreeing with him. Each drop hit like a ticking clock. I poured out the second half of the bourbon bottle and promised myself something violent. I'd find that package, even if it killed me, because if I didn't, someone would oblige. Chapter 7. Chinatown Shadows. By the time the rain dried, the whispers led east. Chinatown. A mess of neon dragons, paper lanterns that never slept, and alleys where knives lived longer than the men who carried them. If the package was information, it made sense. Those streets dealt in secrets the way the docks dealt in fish. I started small. Tea houses, gambling dens behind curtains, faces wary, lips tighter than vaults. Drop enough bills, though, and ghosts start telling bedtime stories. One said Wendell tried pawning something too hot to hold. Another swore he'd seen him with McNally, a weasel-faced kid who ran errands for the Tongs on Canal. The deeper I pushed, the rougher it got. Street vendors turned their backs, whispers stopped dead. I was a whiteface asking the wrong questions, and in Chinatown, that means someone is already planning your funeral menu. It happened after midnight. Leaving a dim bar, I felt them close in. 2 shadows I'd seen nursing drinks they weren't sipping. They followed my left turn, then my right, then closed off the alley. "You're making yourself unpopular," one said, voice slick. The second toyed with a butterfly knife, its polished edge catching the neon drizzle. "Forget Wendell. Forget the package." "Sure, I'll forget right after we get acquainted." They lunged. Knife Boy was fast, but he telegraphed like a drunk boxer. I sidestepped and drove a fist into his ribs. The other swung wild. He caught my shoulder instead of my jaw. I slammed his face into a row of stacked crates, fish spilling out in a reeking wave. Knife came again, but this time I reminded him the alley had brick walls. His head took the meeting poorly. One slumped down cursing, the other just groaned in crab shells. I walked away, jacket stinking like Chinatown markets, but alive. So Clara's husband had stumbled into more than debts. He'd touched a fuse that ran under half the city. And now I was holding the match. Chapter 8. A Knife in the Dark. I didn't have long to wait before Clara resurfaced. Red dress, same heels, only she didn't bother painting on fear anymore. She came into my office like it belonged to her. "You found him?" she asked. "Yeah," I said flatly, "in the Riverside Motel, with a bullet in his neck." Her eyes gave the truth away. No blink, no gasp, just the calm of someone hearing rehearsal lines. "I see," she murmured. "You were there," I pressed. "Lipstick on his glass, told me before my lighter did. Care to explain?" Her expression stayed marble. "He called me, wanted to talk. By the time I arrived, he was already dead. I panicked, I left, that's all." "Sure, and the Easter bunny left the bullet," I said. But she leaned closer, voice low, urgent. "That package? It's not jewels, it's documents, accounts, and photographs linking half this city's politicians to people they don't want Sunday papers knowing about. That's why George died, and why you'll die too if you don't stop playing detective." My laugh was smoke in the air. "Lady, the thing about me, once I smell blood, I don't stop running until I see who's holding the knife." Something in her eyes softened, for one damn second. Then, just as quick, the mask went back on. "Find it, Kenton, bring it to me, or we both drown." She left. The perfume lingered, sour on my tongue. The more lies she dripped, the more I realized she wasn't worried about drowning. She was worried about keeping her head above mine. Chapter 9. The Man Who Knew Too Much. George hadn't worked alone. Every drunk in Chinatown confirmed it, if you gave them time. His sidekick was a nervous kid named McNally. Barely 25, all bones and twitch, the kind of guy who looked guilty buying cigarettes. Nobody in the city trusted him with a dime, but George treated him like insurance. I tracked him to a basement bar off Delancey. Place looked like termites had stopped chewing out of pity. McNally was hunched at a backwards table, chain drinking, staring at nothing but fear. I pulled a chair. "You've got a hell of a way of staying invisible, kid." His face drained. "I don't know nothing, didn't see nothing." "Sure, but funny thing, the kind of nothing that gets your friends killed usually comes with a price tag. Where's the package?" He shook, lit another cigarette with trembling fingers. "We had it. He told me to hold it, just for a bit. Then things moved too fast. Men came. I ran. They shot him. Next thing I know, I'm carrying dynamite." My hand tightened on the glass. "Who has it now, McNally?" His eyes darted like trapped mice. "Clara," he gasped. She set him up. It was all her." The words died with the bullets. 2 cracks from the stairwell, sharp and merciless. McNally jerked, crimson spreading over his shirt. He hit the table and rolled to the floor, eyes fixed blank as Wendell's. The gunman was gone before I yanked mine clear. Only the smell of cordite stayed behind. I stood over McNally's body, teeth grinding. His last whisper echoed in my skull louder than the shots. She set him up. Chapter 10. A Gun in the Drawer. Back in my office, the night sweated through the blinds. Bottles stood empty like verdicts, ashtray drowning in butts. I sat staring at the cracks in the ceiling, letting McNally's last gasp repeat on a loop. She set him up. The pieces fit too neatly. The lipstick, the calm when I'd told her George was stiff. The sudden knowledge of what that package carried. Clara Wendell hadn't just been a grieving wife, she was conductor of the whole orchestra. The knock was soft, but familiar. She slipped in without waiting for an invitation, eyes too bright, mouth too still. She walked past me and perched on the edge of my desk, like it was her dressing room. "Any luck?" she whispered. "It depends what you call luck," I said, hand near the drawer where my .38 slept. She leaned closer, eyes darting to my cabinet. "Don't play with me, Kenton. Give me the package. We can both walk away." She smiled then, tight, and strained. George's death doesn't mean ours. I almost laughed blood. Newsflash, I don't have it. McNally said you played them both. Then he caught 2 bullets to the chest. Her mask cracked, just for a half second. Maybe surprise, maybe regret. Then the steel returned. Without pause, her hand went into her purse. I yanked open the desk drawer, and there it was, just like an old friend waiting. Both safeties came off at once. She was quick, but not quick enough. I slapped her wrist. The revolver clattered on the floor. For the first time, she looked scared. "You don't understand," she hissed. "With that package, I can buy freedom. Without it, I'm dead. They'll never let me live." I kept my gun steady. "Lady, freedom's expensive, and you've been paying with other people's lives." Chapter 11. The Betrayal. Gun still in my grip, I let the silence stretch. Clara's perfume filled the room, mixing with gun oil. She wasn't the first beautiful liar to sit where she sat, but maybe the most dangerous. "You killed McNally," I said flat. Her eyes narrowed. "If I did, it's because he'd have drowned us both. He was a child, Kenton, weak. The city doesn't forgive weak." "And George?" A shrug so faint it cut like glass. "George was useful, until he wasn't. He thought he could run, maybe even cut me out. He forgot. I don't get cut out." It was all there then, plain and unpainted. For Clara, people weren't husbands or partners. They were rungs on a ladder, discarded once you climb higher. "Kenton, listen to me," she breathed. "One last time. Help me. Together we can sell it, disappear. I'll cut you 50. I shook my head. "Lady, the last guy who trusted you is bleeding into motel sheets. I'm not looking for a discount grave." For the first time, she dropped the seduction and snarled like an alley cat. "Then you'll die alone." I let her pick up her gun, not loaded anymore. I'd palmed the rounds fast enough. She realized it too late, rage replacing fear. She slammed out, heels stabbing the hallway, leaving me with smoke rings and fresh scars in my head. One thing was clear now. Clara wasn't running anymore. She was going for the kill, and I'd have to be ready to bite back. Chapter 12. Crossfire on the Docks. News moves like fire in gasoline alleys. By nightfall I knew the package was in play. A deal was going down midnight sharp, Pier 17 on the docks. If the whispers were true, it wasn't just mobsters sniffing of blood. Politicians, fixers, even O'Malley's boys would be waiting. Everyone hungry. The fog rolled thick when I arrived. Spotlights carved swaths through the mist, throwing long shadows that twitched like guilty men. A score of them stood by crates, guns bulging under coats, men who laugh only at tombstones. Clara was there too, red dress, wind whipping it around her like smoke. In her hands, briefcase, heavy, precious, damnable. When our eyes met, she gave me a smile that cut both ways. Before I could blink, everything fractured. Shouts, gunmetal scraping out. A single shot cracked the night, then 30 more followed. Lead screamed through fog. Crates exploded, splinters and sparks raining. Men tumbled into the water, crimson blooming on the tide. I dropped behind a bollard, Colt barking fire with each squeeze. A man's scream ended with a splash. Through the haze, I saw Clara clutching that case, ducking between barrels like a fox. Victory in her eyes, madness in her grin. She made it halfway to a car when O'Malley appeared, trench coat flapping. No warning, no arrest, just 2 bullets dead center in her back. She jerked, dropped the briefcase, and collapsed against the pier boards. O'Malley lit a smoke, unfazed. He kicked the briefcase into the black water. The ocean swallowed the truth whole. "You see, Kenton," he drawled, exhale like steam, "there are some things even the law doesn't want discovered." Then he walked away, as if it had been just another Tuesday. And me, I stayed crouched, trembling with rage, blood on my coat that wasn't all mine, watching the tide cover every secret this city couldn't bear to face. Chapter 13. The Final Lie. The gun smoke drifted out across the black water, hanging like ghosts that refused to sink. Men lay broken across the pier, their blood dripping into the tide, feeding gulls that screeched like they'd been waiting all night. The city wouldn't read about this in the morning papers. O'Malley had made sure of that. I moved toward Clara. She was sprawled half on her side, red dress turning a darker shade with each heartbeat she lost. Her hands still clawed for the briefcase now gone to the deep. When I knelt, her eyes fluttered open. "You should have joined me," she whispered. Blood flecked her lips, her breath short and shallow. "We could have owned this city." "I'm not in the real estate business," I said, voice flat though my chest felt like lead. She coughed, shuddering, eyes turning glassy but still burning. "George was weak. McNally weaker. But you," her hand trembled, half reaching for me, "you were strong enough. A shame." Then the faintest smile curved her lips. "Power's all I ever wanted, and I almost had it." By the time her head settled back against the planks, the smile was gone. She died clutching nothing and wanting everything. That was Clara Wendell's epitaph, and she wrote it in her own blood. Chapter 14. Payment in Full. The cops came later, but not for the dead. Trucks rolled up, spotlights cut the fog, and uniforms herded survivors like rats in daylight. O'Malley gave orders with a cigarette in his mouth and contempt on his tongue. Not once did he look at me. He didn't have to. His message had already been clear as those bullets. I walked back through the city as dawn crept in. Streets washed pale gray, last night's rain still clinging to gutters. Bars were closing, milk trucks starting their rounds, and all I could think was how the city eats its children and calls it breakfast. Clara, George, McNally, all pawns. Men in high towers pulling moves from the shadows. Me? Just another piece sliding across the board. Useful until I'm not. Back in the office, I poured the last swallow of bourbon. It tasted like dust and endings. My desk was cluttered, my lighter gone, my name still painted crooked on the door. I had $500 less expenses stuffed in my drawer. Payment in full. Clara's money was as dirty as her secrets, but it spent the same. What it bought me was another week alive. Maybe 2. I told myself I'd walk away from cases like this, head south, vanish. But I knew better. The city doesn't let go. It just waits for you to come crawling back. Chapter 15. Tomorrow Never Calls. Night turned to day, and day turned to the same old grind. Phone sat on the desk, silent as the graveyard Clara now filled. Sometimes I stared at it long enough to imagine it ringing, maybe her voice smoky again. Maybe another poor bastard asking me to fetch death on a leash. But the truth is, in my world, tomorrow never calls. Only trouble does, and trouble has my number memorized. I leaned back, lit a cigarette, and let the smoke scribble across the ceiling. Outside, the city rolled on. Deals made, Lives broken, cash moving under tables, slick with blood. Clara was gone, O'Malley was fat with power, Wendell and McNally were rotting sermons against being weak. And me? I was still breathing, still broke, still waiting for the next knock on the door. Because that's what men like me do. We outlive the liars and the bullets, even if we don't know why. I poured another glass, the bourbon catching the morning light. It was bitter, biting, just like the truth. There's no happy ending here, no clean slate, no sunrise worth trusting. In this city, you don't wait for tomorrow, you wait for trouble. And it always comes.